Sick.
Good evening. How are you?
BBC Radio Manchester.
My name's Allan Beswick, as you may have gathered, and this is the Allan Beswick Late Night Phone-In. We're here till 1 o'clock, and if you wish to join us, that's good, because the number is free. 0800 218 2255. The subject is for you to choose. We don't mind. We'll talk about, well, just about anything, really. Not fussed either way. But 0800 218 2255. You can only get us on the phone. We don't do text, emails and all that stuff. That's for others to do. This is a phone-in, and the old-style phone-in. Pick up your phone, or indeed take it out of your back pocket or wherever you hide it. 0800 218 2255. We're here till 1. The lines are open. Let's have a chat about something. I've got good news. I always like good news. You don't get a lot of it, but this is excellent news. Bruno Tonioli is to be a judge on Britain's Got Talent. Excellent. Another very good reason not to watch it. I'm not a fan. My mum used to say, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. As was often the case, she wasn't wrong. The Metropolitan Police is and has been for years a law unto itself. The latest evidence of that is that a school liaison officer admitted in court this week that he'd had sex with a 14-year-old girl. And then we heard the head of the Metropolitan Police, they call him the commissioner, we heard that 3 coppers a week, about on average, you know, it's not an appointment, 3 coppers a week will be in court for the next year. That's 150 coppers will be in court for the next year in an attempt to weed the filth. Journalist Emily Maitlis, she's the one that skinned Prince Andrew live in an interview. She's said to be campaigning for a blue plaque to be attached to the Pizza Hut where the Prince famously claimed to have been on the night of 1,000 wives. I love it. So, a man convicted of rape says that he's now a woman. And he's finally been told, I'm led to believe, that he's not going into a prison for women. And isn't that how it should be? I mean, surely, you know, I'm all for people choosing whatever gender they want. I don't care. It's nothing to do with me. They can be who they wish. They can be whatever gender they wish. I don't care. But to confine men who change into women just by saying so in a woman's prison seems weird. Surely, what gender one claims in such a situation has to take place to the tackle you've got, doesn't it? What do I know? A hospital boss has said that hospitals are the worst places to be, but if that's so, how come there are so many queues to get in? And there is outrage in Japan, or at least outrage about Japan, which is perhaps slightly different. Why? Well, they've introduced vending machines that dispense the local food delicacy, whale meat. Apparently, this is a very naughty thing to do, and as Vic Reeves once said, the Greens, for it is they, just wouldn't let it lie. Japan in trouble over whale meat again. Whale, meet again. Come on, you must have got it. What's the matter with you? 0800 218 2255. I've never had whale meat. I must have a blubber, as it's called. Are we not pushing off straight? What are you having for tea? Oh, we're having a bit of blubber and chips. What? You wouldn't, would you? Well, I wouldn't. Ugh, just sounds awful. Well, there you go. Such is life, each to their own. 0800 218 2255. Let's get started, one way or t'other, as they say. I'll just get me a bit of paper. I like a bit of paper to scribble on when people are yakety. It's very important. I'll just get to the right page. Here we go. How do, Keith?
Hello. Right. I can't believe this. My wife got a letter this week from Department of Work and Pensions, and she's suddenly got to prove that she's actually married to me, even though we got married 28 years ago.
Fair enough.
Right?
Yeah. This is her chance to get out.
Yeah, well, that's one way of looking at it. Anyway, it turns out that her pension is based on my national insurance contributions.
Yeah,
but but why has it taken them so long to decide to check up?
Well, I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
I know, but it's not easy to get through, as you know.
Well, I mean, you can prove it, can't you?
Well, yes, but I'm just trying to figure out why, after all this time, to decide to check up.
Well, are you currently in receipt of a state pension?
Yes.
Right. So you're getting the cash, and they presumably want to be absolutely certain that when you snuff it, she'll be entitled to some of it, or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. I think we've got as far as we're going to get with that one.
Well, so do I.
So, right, tattoos strengthen the immune system. Can you believe that?
I don't believe anything.
That's from me, 555 fascinating facts, by the way.
Right.
And last one tonight, which is also...
Does it give a reason? Does it give a process by which that happens?
Oh, no.
Because, of course, getting poorly can boost your immune system. I mean, what they do, when they give you an inoculation, they fill you... Well, they don't fill you, you just get a little bit, but you get a bit of poison, and your body says, oh, that looks like poison, we better deal with that. Oh, come here, you. Smash. And they sort it out. And then they're ready. Next time the poison comes out, we're ready for these. We've had these before. We licked them last time. We're licking this. Off we go, lads. Sort it. So it could be that, couldn't it? You know.
Well, right. Well,
say what you like. They might make you fitter and healthier, but they still make you look like a prat. Anyway, do it.
Right. This one is the worst one of the lot. It's illegal for frogs to croak after 11 p.m. at night in Memphis, Tennessee.
Has anyone told you?
Well, this is the problem.
Yeah.
Right. That's me lot tonight, Alan.
Right then.
Fascinating facts.
Well, you might find one eventually. Thank you very much. 0800 218 2255 if you want to join us. And Memphis, who Keith just mentioned, of course, was where I think it was 4, it might have been 5 coppers beat up that chap, Tyre Nichols. Somebody came on the programme last week and said, can you be racist if you're black? Well, the officers were all black, and the victim, who they beat senseless, was also black. Now, why did they do it? I don't know, but maybe they're just Memphis coppers, and Memphis coppers think black people are baddies. That's racist. So, yes, they can. But his name was Tyre Nichols. I mean, I'm not an American, but who calls their child Tyre? I mean, has he got a cousin called Hubcap? 0800 218 2255. How do Sophia?
Hello, Alan. I'd like some advice, please, on how to challenge a car park fine from Euro car parks.
Well, you just say, I wasn't there, or whatever your argument is. What is your argument?
Well, basically, I went to a local market with a good friend before Christmas, and I used her disabled badge and we parked in a designated disabled bay. We then left the vehicle, and it was one of those car parks, you know, with the camera systems that take a note of your entrance and exit with your registration. So then I didn't think anything more of it, and then I got the notice in the post from the Euro car park saying to pay £100 or £60 if you pay within a certain amount of time. So I was aware that perhaps they didn't know that we actually were parked in a disabled bay with the time and the badge on display. So I sent all the details then off to them with photographs and evidence and everything. And sadly, it's come back as we actually do owe for the penalty.
Okay,
and they said that in the small print that there's actually a notice to say that there's no concessions for disabled parking.
Right.
But I didn't go to the board, you see, to read that because I had a disabled badge. Sorry.
Well, when one has a disabled, a blue badge, as I think we call them, when one has such a badge, when you are issued with it, it does tell you, I mean, it won't have told you, it will have told the person who is entitled to it, it will have told them that it doesn't give them the right to park in every car park for free.
Right, okay.
That's not what it's for. The idea is that the blue badge enables you to park, if you like, more conveniently. So they reserve spaces for such vehicles in car parks. Some of them allow the person with a disability to park for free, some of them don't, but the responsibility is upon the driver to find out what rules apply to them when they park.
Oh dear.
So
it sounds like I'm going to have to pay the amount then from your experience.
Well, the question is, were you parked legitimately or illegitimately? And from what you've told me, you were parked illegitimately because you hadn't made yourself aware of the terms and conditions of that car park. You believed the blue badge made your parking free, but lots of places it isn't. Indeed, there are some people who campaign...
I wasn't aware of that at all.
Well, some people even campaign for it not to be, because, yes, have car parks specifically designated to people who have disabilities, but they're not all poor. Some people, you know, if you're a millionaire and you also have a disability, you get a blue badge, why should you get free parking when you're a millionaire? So it's that kind of argument that some people put. But you can fight it anyway. I mean, you can take them on and take them to court, or eventually they'll take you to court and go to court and say, well, you know, I think this is unacceptable. But the court may well say, did you break the rules?
Yeah, I just wasn't aware of it at all. And I don't know whether other people may be getting these car park fines and find out the hard way as well.
Well, if they're the person who has the disability, if they're the person to who the card was issued, they should be aware that it's not an exemption from all parking charges.
Maybe in the past it used to be, but now it's changed.
Well, it still is.
Yeah.
It was never.
Just wanted to say,
it was never a system that said you can park freely wherever you wish. It doesn't do that.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to say as well that you know, I've really enjoyed your show. I've been listening for about a year and a half, and I sort of went on then and became a listing volunteer for charity because I found the way you sort of handle calls and listen to people and everything else was a good sort of grounding for me as well for the future. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Glad to be of service. I'm paid reasonably well to do it, so that's what matters. Good to talk to you, Sophia. 0800 218 2255. We're here till 1. How do Ray?
Hi, Alan.
Hiya.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about this. You know the welfare system in America, where it's like Americans always say to the American government always say to the people, like, you have to stand on your own 2 feet. Do you think, Alan, it's like a good thing, or do you think it's a bad thing?
Well, first of all, they don't quite say that in America. They do have an element of unemployment. Of unemployment type benefits and other benefits of a similar kind as well. They also have free emergency medical care, so it's not entirely you're on your own. If you ain't got no brass, you're stuffed. So that's the first difference. Is it the perfect way? It's not a very social way, and by social I don't mean socialist, I mean social. I think if the only people who can get the services they need are those that have got the money to buy them, it means an awful lot of people will suffer just because they haven't got enough money.
It seems like the rich people don't really care about the poor people, and in America it seems like the poor people, like the rich people, like look down on the poor people, like, yeah, I'm not helping you.
Well, that must be the case for some, but quite a lot of rich people in America do help. Indeed, the tax system in America allows those who pay tax to offset the tax they are due to pay by spending the money on charity, which is why you hear of all these billionaires setting up trusts and all sorts of things. So there is this idea that some rich people do choose to help those who are not so well off.
Yeah, it's just like, the thing is though, I don't know how you would, if you're in America now, if you have a heart attack in America, it'd be a lot of money to pay, wouldn't it? It'd be like hard.
Well, again, it may not be, because emergency medicine is free. Now, the problem there is you go along, they'll save your life, but once they've saved your life, then if you want to stay in hospital and get further treatment, that's not free. So you get your life saved, and then thank you very much, out you go.
Out you go. Yeah.
But your life is saved, and, you know, that's maybe a good thing.
I don't think Britain could ever replicate that idea of America, even though we do, like, replicate their ideas sometimes.
Well, we are currently replicating it in a number of ways, in that if you have a heart attack now, the ambulance may take an hour to get there, but I assure you, if you're a millionaire, it'll take less time because you'll access a private ambulance service. So you can beat the system, as it were, at the moment in this country.
In this country as well? Yeah. Well, it seems like we follow their ideas in America. Us British people, we seem to follow it.
Well, it is and has always been the case that money talks. You know, if you've got health insurance in this country, you have to pay for it, and it isn't the best service in the world, as it were. You know, but if you needed your hips replacing and you went to the NHS, and the NHS would say, yep, you need new replacement hips and all the rest of it, it'll be free, but you'll wait 3.5 years. And if you go to a private hospital, they say, you want your hips replacing? We can do it a fortnight on Tuesday, but it'll cost you 20 grand. Or whatever the price
20
is.
Grand?
I don't know the price.
I know, but if that was the case, you have to pay 20 grand. Jesus Christ, you're not going to pay. You'd be like, forget it.
Well, that depends on what 20 grand means to you.
It's a lot of money. It's something that I can't afford.
Well, indeed, but I can't either. Well, you know, many, many years ago, when my dad first needed his hips replacing, he was on a waiting list, and it was going to take 12 to 18 months before the operation happened. And this was back in the mid-70s, I think it was, when he had his first one done. And that was the waiting list. And me, my brother and sister, all of which had reasonably well-paid jobs, said, well, we'll club to it. It was only about 3 grand at the time. A lot of money back then. And we said, well, we can copper up and pay for it. And he said, no, I don't believe in that. I believe in the National Health Service. I'll wait. And, you know, that was his principle. But people do it. I mean, you don't have to be mega rich to do it.
Yeah, you'd have to really save up for it, wouldn't you?
Well, it depends how much money you've got. Most of the time, yes, for most people, they couldn't even save up for it. But
If you're on benefits, though.
if you're on benefits, you're stuffed.
Yeah. Huh. Wow.
But that's life. I'm not supporting it, but that's how the world is. You know, in the end, everything you get off the NHS, everything, is paid for by somebody, and that somebody is a taxpayer, and taxpayers pay a lot of tax. You know, now if your income is so great that you don't pay any tax, then great. But there's a woman who owns, along with her brother and other members of her family, they own a betting company, an online betting company. I forgot the name of it. But last year she paid herself 400 million quid or something ludicrous for wages. And everyone goes, what? But that company paid about 500 million in tax.
Wow.
So they're paying, 500 million quid, and that's buying guns for Ukraine and IPs for Britain. So it's not all bad,
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's if you have to pay for a hospital, I think this country, people in this country will not be happy. They'll be protesting if they have to pay for the healthcare.
Well, I'm not sure. There was a survey in one of the newspapers, I think it was probably the Daily Mail, saying, you can't get GP appointments for love nor money. Well, would you pay 20 quid? And a lot of people said, yes, I would. A lot of people said, yes, I will. I go for a dental checkup every 6 months because my teeth are in my mouth and my mouth is my living. And that's always private because the NHS only puts a third of it in anyway. Now, there are some people who can't afford that, and so they don't get their teeth done at all. It used to be free. It's not anymore, except for a very, very limited number of people. And the dentists say we can't make any money doing dental work on the NHS. So, so they just say, right, sod it, we're going private.
Oh well, that's the world we're going to live in, Alan.
It's the world we're living in right now, and there seems to be little sign of it changing in the immediate future. Because bear in mind, go on.
It'll probably change in the next 20 years' time.
Well, it might, but whether it'll be for better or for worse, we'll have to wait and see, Ray. But have a good night, mate. But the US social system is less generous than ours, but nonetheless has some degree of social about it. 0800 218 2255. If you want to join us, pick up your phone. How do, Steve?
Hello, Alan. Good evening.
Good evening.
Stayed up late, especially to listen, Alan. And I just wanted, really, just to give my opinion. I think it was one of the first things you mentioned. We'll say the person who they can't decide whether she should go to a male or a female jail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's up to you whether you get wrong with the facts or not. But the way I understand it, when he committed the crimes, he was a male.
Yes.
So as far as I'm concerned, this is just my opinion on it, he should go to a male jail for that, if he was a male at the time of the offence, or when he was charged with it.
Okay.
And I also personally think... Sorry, you go.
Well, it was just one question, just a simple one. If, since committing the offence, he'd actually physically changed his gender so that he now had female genitalia, would that affect the view you've just expressed?
No, I don't think that should come into it at all. It should be at the time of the offence.
Well, I get that, but if you then,
opinion.
But if you then send him to a male prison, he's going to be a physical woman in a man's prison.
Don't care. And that brings me to my second point.
Okay.
I'm also, when I saw it on the headline news on the telly, but let me say that I'm shocked, outraged, whatever, staggered that it was even allowed this process or treatment under the circumstances. But so we said that is just the world we're living in at the moment. So, for me, male jail all the way. I bet a lot of people agree with me on that as well.
Well, we'll find out if they want to agree or even disagree. But the number's there. Steve, thank you very much. 0800 218 2255. Steve says, where gender's an issue, if you are a particular gender at the time of your offence and you change gender, either the full process, physical, changing the genitalia, the operations and all the rest of it, or just by declaration, I'm a woman now, call me Mabel. It's the gender you are, the sex you are, if you will, at the time of the offence that matters. So you were a bloke when you did it, you're getting punished as a bloke. But I'm a woman, you're still a bloke. In you go, or to the way round. What do you say? It's a very, very contentious issue. And this, in Scotland, there are a few steps ahead of us in gender recognition. Whether they're right or wrong doesn't matter. They are a few steps ahead of the rest of the UK. Well, England and Wales, really. So in Scotland, they're just in the process of introducing legislation where self-declaration of gender is almost enough. So I could decide, I promise you I'm not going to, you get too much privilege as a bloke, as far as I can see, but I could decide that when I come on to the programme tomorrow night, my name is Angela, and I'm a woman. And you won't know whether I'm wearing a frock or not. In fact, you don't know whether I'm wearing anything or not. And that's giving you an image you could do without. Or even Ashley. 0800 218 2255. How do Ashley?
Right, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so in terms of like the transgender issue with like prisons.
Yeah.
So in terms of the actual offence, so it could be, at the minute it's a sexual offence is what the media, is focusing on. So that's where the issue is. It's not a case of like, a transgender person has, stole something and they want to go to a female prison. It seems like it's focused on the sexual side of things. So on that basis, because that's where people are like getting really upset about, and that's where charities and organisations are going, right, this cannot happen because of how vulnerable people are in prison and the close proximity, with these offenders, etc. However, people need to understand that there are female sex offenders out there that do end up in female prisons. And there are male sex offenders that have committed offences against males, and they end up in male prisons that end up in close proximities like the showers and going to the gym, etc., within those prisons that are in those situations and surroundings. So when people sort of like get angry within themselves, they need to sort of like understand the whole like situation of where it is. And then when like these like transgender people, they do identify as women, so that's where the issue lies. So saying they should not go to a women's prison or they should go to a male prison or vice versa, like people just need to go, like, these people identify as women, what do we do? Do we send them to a women's prison? Do we send them to a men's prison? Or do we have an alternative situation where it could be, even for like the people who've committed offences against men, that go to this alternative place? So do you want to create something that's like, alternative and be radical? Because it seems like Britain, in terms of the justice system and everything else, we're always like 10 steps behind. Where Europe, Australia or whatever, they're always a step ahead, and we always follow them. So why not have Britain being the leading example and say, right, we're going to create an alternative environment for these men that have committed offences against men to go into this place, and we're going to have transgender people to go into this place and have it a unique environment, and have it as like a therapy place, and treat these people as they need to be treated.
There was a former prison governor, a retired prison governor, on, I think it was on PM, but it might have been the Today programme earlier in the week, talking about this issue. And they talk, the term they use is estate. They talk about the prison estate, the properties and the like. And the prison estate already is massively overcrowded. We all know that. But this former governor was saying, at the moment, we have the male estate and the female estate. But at some point, we have to have another element, which is less precise. I don't think that was his exact word, but that's my memory of it, if you like. Not as precise. And we already have that. Within the male and female estate, predominantly male, but within both, they have segregation. For example, men who've done sexual things predominantly and violent things to children are put away from the other prisoners for their own safety. And the same in women's prison, particularly mothers who've murdered their own child are kept separate from the other prisoners for exactly the same reason, for the prisoner's safety. So there is a process. Now, you seem to be suggesting slightly different than Steve. Steve was saying that the gender that you have at the time of the offence should decide which of the two estates you go into, the female or the male, which is interesting. You seem to be saying that actually there are many, many offences committed by people of all genders and no genders and the rest that are nothing to do with sex. What does it matter if you're a dangerous driver and you're male physically but have been living as a female for the past 2 years or something, and you convicted of dangerous driving? What difference does it make which prison you go into? That's what you seem to be saying. If I'm putting words in your mouth, spit them out again, by all means.
No, so in terms of because at the minute it seems like the media is focused on mainly, the sexual offences of the rape and everything else of women, which is, I'm not saying that's okay, but I'm just saying
it's understandable.
With how that is, I get why people are, getting upset with, this person has raped a woman and it's potentially. Well,
let's move away from any particular person, because that puts us in dangerous ground, as it were. But a person who is physically male, claiming to be female, who has to be, I'm sorry, not claiming to be, but is now living as a female, who has committed a sexual offence against women. He's still got all the male genitalia. What if he commits rape? Many people would be outraged if he went into a woman's prison. They were outraged at the suggestion this man might be. So are you suggesting a third place?
Yeah, so maybe create, different, because in terms of people being outraged, I get that and I understand why people are, but why are not people outraged by certain men that have committed offences against other males end up in a male prison? Why is that not an issue? Why have people not even, so with this now being in the limelight of, the transgender, but why have people not even, because it's happened for the last 50, maybe 100 years, that a man probably has raped another man, and it's not been in the limelight. It's never been in the media. It's never been an issue.
Well, it's only in answer to that, just in simple answer to that, male rape of a male has only been a crime as rape for a very short time historically. It previously was all kinds of sexual assault and all the rest of it, but the penetrative male rape is quite new historically as a statute crime.
Right. But why is like the media, or why are like people like only like recognising the transgender issues, like where my sort of thing is? But then, so like taking all of that into consideration, so a man committed an offence against a man, that man does go into a male prison. That is a fact. So that's how it happens now. So why would somebody who identifies as a woman not go into a female prison? Like, why would that not happen with the whole situation it is? That's what I'm trying to like say. But then, like, I'm basically saying it shouldn't happen for the man committing a sexual offence against a man. I'm saying that should not happen, and I'm saying the also should not happen. So why not create a different environment? Is what I'm trying to say.
Indeed, and it is a question you won't be the last to ask it. There is one answer to the question you pose: why are people getting agitated about transgender offenders? And the answer is that people are not yet comfortable with transgender in the way that 25 years ago they weren't comfortable with the concept of homosexuality and lesbianism. So society is changing, and it changes oh so slowly, and people out front of those changes are regarded as peculiar. Whereas in the non-too-distant future, maybe another 10, 15 years, transgender of itself won't be an issue, just like homosexuality presently is hardly an issue at all. But Ashley, good to talk to you. Sorry, please.
Okay.
Good to talk to you. Have a good night, mate. Yeah. 0800 218 2255. What do you think of the whole thing? What do you think of the whole idea of transgender? I mean, I think the plan in Scotland, and I'm prepared to be corrected by anybody that knows better, than that's half the world at least, but I think in Scotland that they're reducing the age, lowering the age at which one can decide. And one MP said, I think it was a male MP, said he's not concerned about people, adults, selecting which gender they want to live. And I'm not saying it's like, I think I'll do my hair today. You know, he's saying, they choose the life that they believe their emotions have been steering them towards. And he was saying that until they get to adult, and in our society that's 18, until they get to adult, they should not be encouraged or even allowed to self-change. There was a couple on telly maybe 12, 18 months ago, and they had a young child, I think 7 or 8 years of age, and I think that the pronoun now is they, which I find uncomfortable language-wise, but their child, would decide some days they was a boy and other days they was a girl. And the parents said, well, that's fine, whichever you want to be is fine by us, so you're our child, that's the end of it. Now, I can't yet relate to that. I'm not saying it's wrong, I can't relate to it. I find that weird. That makes me bad, I understand that, but I've known for years how bad I was. But what do you think, this whole idea of transgender? What's your view? 0800 218 2255. Once they become adults, who cares? Wear a frock, wear a suit, who cares? Doesn't matter. Do what you like, as long as it's legal. How do James?
Good evening, Alan. You've been to China here?
Yes.
What's it like? What are the people like there?
Well, there's about 1.5 billion of them, and I met a handful.
Yeah. I mean, how do you behave towards English people?
They were, as far as I could tell, they were extremely courteous, but we were in a strange bubble in that I was there as a reporter, for want of a better term, with the orchestra. So we were following the orchestra round, and making a programme about the orchestra in China. But we did go out. I went out into a marketplace, and usually when you go and do these things, the producer comes with you and arranges who you'll talk to and all of that. And we went to this market, which I just said, right, give me the tape recorder, give me the microphone, and then I'll be back in half an hour. And I went into this market with not a word of English. This is a market where local people go rather than a tourist market.
Yeah.
And nobody spoke English. Nobody even had a stab at English. And I eventually went around and said hello to people and the like, and they looked at me as if I was crackers and tried to get me into their stall, you know. And eventually there was 3 women running a stall selling belts and ties. And I went into that. They beckoned me in. I went in. And I think it's up there amongst the most fun I've had with a microphone in my hand in all the time I've been broadcasting. They were brilliant. They were absolutely brilliant. And they knew it was a microphone. They knew I was carrying a tape recorder. I mean, they're only tiny, but the microphone and tape recorder, that is. But they were fun. And they were just having a very good laugh at my expense, trying all these different ties on me and putting them around my neck and putting belts round me. And they put one belt round and it didn't fit. And by God, did they laugh. And then they brought one out that I think was at least a mile long, which was even funnier, you know, put that round. Oh, no. And it all went on. And this was all being recorded. And I clue what they were saying. I knew they were ripping me to pieces. And it was just so much fun. And it was just kindness, just general ordinary personness. So that's the only proper contract I had where I wasn't giving them money, you know, buying a coffee or them. We went, my producer and I, Michelle, went out onto the, because you do, on our day off, we went out to the Great Wall of China, and there was a tea shop there, and we went in, and the menu, obviously all in Chinese, but they gave us an English translation one. They had things like evil princess tea and fiery dragon tea. You know, it's just fantastic. And again, the people were great, but you know, you can't count them because they were giving us service. They were. I don't mean this offensively, but we were paying them to give us a service. The people in the hotel were fantastic. And the other thing I'll say about the hotel, it was actually a hotel because the Chinese government was paying for the trip. It was paying for the orchestra, at least. The orchestra paid for us to go, but they were the guests of the Chinese government. And they put us up in an hotel, very nice hotel. But the hotel was actually one that is usually used by Russians. So there was lots of English language stuff, but most of the other guests were Chinese or Russian. And I found the Russians to be very brusque, but very polite, which was nice. I mean, I don't suppose you'd get that answer if you were in Ukraine at the moment. So the Chinese I met as ordinary Chinese were few and far between. I went out walking late at night, which I do in cities when I'm staying, and I didn't have conversations with Chinese people because I couldn't, you know, just like a Chinese person walking around Manchester or Blackburn or wherever wouldn't get much conversation out of a local. You know, you go around my hometown, Warrington, you got no chance. But they were all courteous and had good evening, and they'd nod, and they're like, you know. So it was fine. It was just like being in any other foreign country where you are the odd one out, but the people are generally, like they are everywhere, happy to see you because they're different to you, but you're different to them.
Yeah. Do you have a bucket list, Alan?
Do I what, sorry?
I have a bucket list.
A bucket list? No.
Before you die, you're going to do before you die.
No.
I have done some of them.
Go on.
Done scuba diving in Egypt and Greece.
Wow.
With a parachute, 3,500 feet.
It's not bad.
Scared the life out of you.
Yeah.
I did in Lancaster, a company called Black Knights. Some ex-Paris. I mean, one mistake coming in.
They're also, aren't they an exhibition team, the Black Knights?
Yeah. I jumped right, coming too fast, broke my leg into your places.
Oh dear. So you're doing a free jump? You weren't piggybacking?
No, a static line. Hook it up, jump out, and it rips you.
Yeah, I know the static line, but you weren't.
No.
Doing it in time.
Not by myself, yeah.
Oh, excellent, excellent.
I suppose
You free fall, yeah.
You fall at 120 miles an hour.
I know. Got something in it. 32
It
feet
is,
per
yeah.
second. Mm.
That's it. When you open that door, if you're not scared, don't do it. You get yourself killed.
Doesn't have much of your hair, I'm told. Anyway, what's still on your list then, James?
Let me see. What's on the list? I've got a few things to do. I want to go to China.
Yeah.
Because that Chinese wall, apparently they call it the Wall of Tears in China. A lot of people died building it.
Well, yeah, I bet they did. Yeah.
Yeah. It's 3,000 something miles long, isn't it?
Oh, it's huge, absolutely huge. We walked a speck of it, an absolute speck, and it was minus 18 degrees.
God, it must have been cold, eh?
We were there at New Year, so it was bloody cold.
Yeah.
And we were wrapped up to the nines. Everyone on there was just had this little slit where their eyes were, you know, balaclavas on, scarves on and everything. Just little slits so you could see where you were going. It was amazing.
Yeah. Can you tell you about my great-grandfather in the First World War?
Go on.
Well, didn't have radios, he carried pigeons. He could carry a pigeon with a parrot. He wanted a bird to give a message.
Thank you very much, James. Good luck with your bucket list. Good to talk to you. 0800 218 2255. We're going to talk to Shafik, to Ted, to Neil, to Andrew, and to you on 0800 218 2255. But not before we've enjoyed the musical treat of UB40. Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. You want to join us, you can. Pick up your phone, have your say, talk about anything. How do Shafik?
I'm okay. I like to talk about the war in Ukraine. I'm so upset war in Ukraine. I like to talk about the Russia President Putin. United Nations knew the Putin last 25 years. United Nations knew him. Whole world knew him. He's represented in the United Nations. Russia was UN Security Council permanent member. We must be sit down in the Security Council. Antonio Guterres must be he understood. We are people, not the ordinary person, like a die without food or without anything. Unnecessary war. Russia, Putin knew that. Even Saudi Arabia, they opened their mosque, two mosques, Makkah Mosque and Medina Mosque. Whole world people, they can watch from anywhere in just around over the wall, from around the corner. They can watch the Makkah Mosque and Medina Mosque. These two mosques even not safe with Russia Putin hand because he upset. We West, we know rule of law. We are in the rule of law. I swear to God, I know Bible, I know Holy Book Quran. Couple of minutes ago, you talk about the sexual intercourse. That's why time to time God messenger came in this world, and every God messenger received message from God, and that is God word. If we read Bible, if we read Quran, there is not same-sex marriage. We made it same-sex marriage. We made a rule of law. So when God messenger Jesus Christ come back another 2 times, he will be reborn exactly like Holy Book Quran and die again, and he will be 3rd time come in life. Religion book not anymore coming, messenger coming. He will be rule this year, and by the British rule of law, British rule of law, British Parliament, mother of all Parliament in this world. We all students knew that. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Not every mother's a good mother, of course. How do Ted?
All right, Alan, kid. Just to say, you know Hermaphrodites, Alan?
Who?
Hermaphrodites.
Do you mean hermaphrodites?
Hermaphrodites, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Now, in this world where we live in, you can't be a hermaphrodite. You have to be either male or female. Why is that?
Well, we don't have a designation hermaphrodite, but you can't stop being a hermaphrodite, and certainly you at some point in our society are required to choose the gender that you're going to live at, but things are changing, it would seem.
Well, Hermaphrodites are born every year. You can't stop it. No human being can
Yes,
stop
they are. They're not common, but they're not absolutely 1 in a trillion. So yes, people who have both genitalia are born each year. Indeed, quite a lot of children are born in that position, and I mean quite a lot, it's a small proportion, and are required at some point in their life to make a choice, and sometimes there is even surgical intervention so that the parents make the choice and the child is changed for the parents at the parents' will, really.
Well, one of my family members, Alan, he speaks like a woman, but he was a Hermaphrodite. Now they changed him into a man, and he's more feminine and speaks like a woman.
Okay.
But Alan, just to say this, you know Jerry Anderson?
There are a number of them. Which one do you mean?
You know the puppets?
The puppeteer, yes. Invented supermarionation, yes.
Well, he was ahead of his time. Would you say that?
I don't know what you mean, ahead of his time. He was a puppeteer.
Well, did you ever see UFO?
Did I ever?
It was UFO was a series. It was done by Jerry Anderson.
No, I
it was
didn't.
called UFO, and humans were doing it like you had human beings doing it. But he was way ahead of his time, Jerry Anderson. Thunderbirds, you know what I mean? International rescue. You don't have to have armies. You can have international rescue.
Yeah, you can. And certainly in fiction, it's a good idea. Ted, thank you very much indeed. 0800 218 2255. If you'd like to join us, you can. Pick up your phone, have your say, talk about, well, frankly, absolutely anything. How do Neil?
Oh, hello there, AB. It is Sylvie Anderson. Just took as much part with Jerry. So
right.
That one, yeah. So I like the joke at the beginning. Whale meet again. That was cracking. That, yeah. So I've got a whale joke after me one short point. About blood, it's not meat. You said it's meat. No, it's adipose, isn't it? It's a layer of fat.
Well, yes, if we're going to be exquisite, but is adipose a type of meat or is it something other than meat? What would you class it as in general?
Well, adipose is a layer of fat.
Adipose tissue is fat, yes, but are you saying that thin layer of fat on a chop is not meat?
No, it's not meat.
No. So you're saying when a person says, I'm going to the butcher's to buy a rib of beef, and they get a rib of beef, they're buying meat, bone, and adipose tissue, and skin, if truth be told.
Oh, true, yeah. So the only meat in it is skin. Muscle.
Is skin meat?
No,
right.
no, meat is muscle.
Okay.
So.
Right.
Just that point. So yeah, that's taking me at that point. So then I've, I say with the joke I've got about whales and then. So why do whales prefer salt water?
I don't know. Why do whales prefer doing salt water?
Because pepper water makes them sneeze. I love you all. Bye-bye.
There's no evidence of that. Thank you, Neil. Yeah, that's all right, isn't it? So there, I'm just going out for a chop. Yeah. So I want some bone, I want some meat, but I also want some adipose tissue to give it flavour and some skin so that something will go crispy. Yeah, just call it meat, we save ourselves. How do Walter?
Hello, Alan.
Hello, Walter.
Sorry, yeah, hello, Alan.
I don't remember anything at the minute. You need to turn your radio off, Walter.
Oh, I need to get in my wheelchair. Hold on.
Well, still got to go.
Bear with me.
I'm bearing.
Bear with me, Al.
I'm bearing.
I did. Know what it sounded like. Sorry, Alan. Yeah, still there?
I'm still there, yes, or here at least.
Well, thank you, Alan. No, I don't mean any harm, yeah?
Good.
But you know, talk about these people that go to jail, yeah?
Yeah.
And they go on the special wing, don't they? You know, you meet someone, or they go on the K wing, you know, like
some go into segregation, not all. Some choose not to.
But why don't the government say, right, if you're found guilty of this offence, you go on the wing?
Well, because if a person guilty of such an offence goes on the wing, as you call it, other prisoners will attack them. And
well, what about the guy in Southport? What about the guy in Scotland? Yeah, he rapes 2 women.
Well, we mustn't. Let us stop. Let us stop. Whilst I say, let's not talk about that individual, because that is a matter that is not yet fully cleared. But an individual can commit a sexual offence, yes.
But he's being sent from a women's prison to a male prison.
Well, that is what has been decided in his case, yes.
So he's going to go with blonde hair, long nails?
He may. We're back talking about him again, and we kind of decided we weren't going to talk about him, so let's not.
Sorry. Right. So all I'm saying is... What can I say? All I'm saying is the sentence is wrong. Yeah?
In what way is the sentence wrong? The sentence, if a person commits an offence and is found guilty, the judge then passes sentence if it's gone to that type of court.
We've got police officers committing rape.
We have police officers that have been found guilty of that, yes.
So, when they go to jail, they'll go on protection wing.
They will, probably, because if they don't, they will be... Because if they don't, they will be assaulted by other prisoners.
Well, so they should be.
Well, no, they shouldn't. In our system, we don't have...
This is the government.
Walter,
if you get found guilty of sexual conduct,
in our system, Walter, we don't allow criminals to hand out the requisite punishments.
I know, yeah.
And do you think we should?
Yeah. No, I think if you're found guilty anonymously by a jury, you should face your punishment. You shouldn't go on a private wing.
Well, it's not a private wing. It is a segregated wing.
I reckon we should put them in the stocks.
Well, fine. So Walter, it would seem, Walter, that you're in favour of physical punishments, even if those punishments are handed out by people who society. Walter, good night. No, Walter, good night. 0800 218 2255. We don't have a system of corporal punishment in our society, thank the Lord. And if we did have, I don't think we would want that punishment to be meted out by people who society don't want anything to do with, to such an extent that they lock them behind 18-foot walls and lock them up in their own room at night. So we don't want prisoners meting out punishments. And that's what would happen. Police officer goes in jail, he gets the crap kicked out. He or she gets the crap kicked out of him. And that is not what our criminal system is for, unless you're Walter. 0800 218 2255. How do Glenn?
Hello, how are you? All right.
I'm very well, thank you.
It's Mistress Woody acted back with you. Are you all right, Pop?
I'm very well, thank you.
Rolly, on Wednesday, the police moved into the supermarket where we're working. There were 4 police officers there.
Glenn, You may recall, for the past few weeks, you and I have said that we will not talk about your employment because it puts your employment at risk. Your employer doesn't want you coming on here and talking about his premises.
You want me to I'll just put you off what I was speaking on. I can't hear you now.
Good.
Sorry about that.
Right. I will say again, Glenn, that for your sake, just your sake, I don't care if you get the sack.
Yeah, I won't tell you.
For just your sake, you and I on the radio will not converse about your place of employment.
Right. Well,
for your
sake. Can I talk about something different?
You can.
Can I talk about a different topic?
You can.
Well, yeah, I'm 50-year-old in March, and I'm having a birthday meal. I want you to come to the party, Alan. Do you come to birthday parties? If it's a free buffet?
I don't go to any parties. I don't go to any parties ever. I hate parties.
Oh, you don't drink, Alan. I forgot you don't drink, do you? Oh, you always have a couple of cigarettes off drink, Alan.
I don't go to parties because I don't like the people at parties.
Right, yeah. But like I said, I'm not talking about the supermarket, but this lady has a friend. We're not together anymore now, and it's heartbreaking. I love the 7 years, and I'm heartbroken. I did my best for you, giving money, and I got attacked a few times, and I'm heartbroken. We're together 6 years. We first got there to around 17 when we got drinking those, and I'm heartbroken. I'm in tears, and I've nobody else, so I'm on my own there, Paul. What's that?
I say when anybody breaks up, most people are sad, but you just have to grit your teeth and move on.
Yeah, the police have been down Chester and they told me to stay away from me. I can't go near the police told me.
Quite right too. She was a nasty bit of work, as you related to me many times.
I didn't see that. She was a loving person. She's had a brain hemorrhage and she's not well. And she's good. She's seriously on. I think that's what's wrong. She's having to have chemo over her cuff all wet, and it makes you sick. The other option was to have brain surgery with break her skull open. And I just hope she's okay. That's all about. Have a good night, Tom.
And you. 0800 218 2255. I don't know why I don't like parties, but I don't. I find them all horrible. It's just not my cup of tea at all. People standing around yattering and supping and all that. I can't be doing with it. I really feel really uncomfortable. How do, Stewart?
Good evening, Alan. How are you?
Good evening. I'm very well, thank you.
Oh, that's good to hear. Look, I just want to change the subject totally altogether.
Okay. That's fine.
It's to do with the Ukraine war. I mean, it's been going on now roughly for 12 months, give or take a few days or weeks. Now, things are escalating now to, the amount of deaths and casualties here is absolutely bloody horrendous, especially on the Russian side. I think he had 188,000 earlier on through the week, through some media. But now NATO are starting to move tanks in there. Is it 4 countries who've got moving tanks in?
Well, NATO. Stuart, it's important that we say that NATO are not moving tanks in there. They are giving tanks to Ukraine for the Ukrainians to use. NATO are not. They're supplying the tanks.
Oh, yeah, sorry, bullets, I do understand. Yeah.
Okay.
But the tanks getting deployed over there, things are starting to get pretty damn serious on all counteracts of different areas. Russia are threatening with nuclear weapons, but I don't think they've still got the weapon's going to be 30, 40 years of age. I don't know if they've still got the power and they've still got the pump or whatever. I'm just starting to get a little bit curious and wondering, where the hell's all this going? I'm watching BBC News, which gives you no news at all. Al Jazeera England, that's not too bad. One or two others. GB News I find quite stupid, personally. But what do you think? Do you think it's time to start not panicking, but just time to think a little bit what the hell's going on? What do we do as a nation of normal people to be able to stop something totally crazy going on?
Well, we don't really have the power. And when I say we, the whole of the West hasn't got the power to stop the war. Wars are being fought. There are a few wars going on around the world, but this one's close to home in that it's in Europe, Eastern Europe, but Europe nonetheless. But you don't have the power to stop a war if two sides are prepared to, if you like, fight one another, using that term in its broadest sense, then there's nothing we can do to stop them. Now, we could make it harder for Ukraine by not supplying them with weaponry, but that would mean that Russia would almost inevitably win, because Ukraine would have nothing to fight with eventually. So Russia would win, and that would mean that Russia had succeeded in taking over a nation which started to look to the West, wanted to join the European Union, wanted to join NATO. And that might not be good for the West.
Isn't that where the issue might have started, Alan? Because
I don't know.
A sleeping bear. And as soon as NATO says yes, fair enough, you can join. I mean, don't forget we have Boris there. Then I mean, I do think Boris is a British patriot all the way through and through. But when it comes to his politics, I'm not his biggest fan. But he seems to promise an awful lot. And I can imagine him and maybe one or two other European politicians thinking, this will be bloody fun. If we stick NATO weapons on the border of Ukraine, I mean, it doesn't really matter which direction they point them, they can twizz them round. But I'm sure that put a spine in Putin's side to think, what the bloody hell's going on here? So,
well, of course, if
I'm not saying whose fault it is why the war's actually started, but I think a few other outsiders have intervened to make this thing happen, and it's getting a bit OTT.
Well,
would you not agree?
I have trouble with OTT. It's a war, and there are no absolute rights and wrongs in wars. There's just war, and all wars are stupid. Of that there is no doubt. All wars are working class people slaughtering each other because the people at the top are stupid. That's the truth of it. Now, Putin, indeed, hundreds of thousands are dying, and what can be done? Well, the only way that will stop is either Ukraine surrenders, Russia surrenders, or they have talks and decide on what the outcome would be. Pardon?
Maybe causing mass destruction.
Yes.
Do you think there's a possibility that this red button can actually be pressed in the next 6 months? Or do you think that it's totally out of the question? I mean,
right.
China, I think he's the only person that's keeping Russia from going crazy because he's like that. No, you can't do this because China's going to go as well. We don't want China to go. But I think Xi Jinping's the only person that's keeping everything from going totally ballistic.
Well, the sensible people, and I'm not talking about politicians, the sensible people are starting to hint that China is losing faith with Russia. They've never been comfortable bedfellows anyway. They've always had difficulties on their own borders, the border between China and Russia. But yeah, I mean, back in the 60s, they were shooting guns at each other. But so they're losing faith and face by supporting Russia, because China is having its own problems at the moment. China's turned itself into a country that supplies the world with everything, and it's having trouble getting its money in for that. So apparently it's diminishing in its support for Russia. So that's a certain irrelevance. Russia is in the position where they have a dictator who doesn't want to lose face. So if we're seeking a solution, it has to be a solution that he can go to say to the Russians, see, it was all worthwhile. You might recall that Russia invaded Afghanistan many years ago and spent years and years fighting in Afghanistan. And the West, America, Britain and lots of others, supplied the Mujahideen and other fighters with the weapons to fight Russia. And eventually Russia's parents, the mothers as it was called, the mothers of the soldiers that died, the conscripts that died in Afghanistan, the mothers got up in arms about it, and eventually Russia, and I think it was the Soviet Union then, but whatever, moved on and said, right, we're not doing anything else. We're getting out. We've had enough. And they pulled out. So out they went, which was fine. And then we stayed there, and then we became the baddies. And we were, well, indeed, and neither could we. Now, if Ukraine turns into a war he can't win, then perhaps he'll pull out. Now, it's not going to be a woman. It's not going to be a war he can't win if Ukraine is not equipped properly to fight. And if they're not equipped properly to fight, he will overcome them. So the West are saying, hang on a minute, we will support them with weaponry.
Yeah, but they also need people to train them how to use the weaponry.
Well, that is what you do when you sell weapons. You then teach the people how to use them. That's part of the process of selling weapons.
This goes all the way back to yours, doesn't it? Even young Thatcher.
It's always been that way. If it's no good saying to somebody, here is a tank, here's some tank shells, now get on with it, because they say, what that button for? I don't know. What that button for? I don't know. How do you make it go forward? I don't know. How do you make it go backward? I don't know. What fuel do you put in it? I don't know. How do we turn it on? I don't know. So you need to teach them. It's like saying to somebody, there's a car. Can you drive it? No, I'm 7. So you've got to teach them how to use it. You're okay with a rifle. Give them a rifle and some bullets. You point it and pull the trigger. But tanks are much more complicated than that these days.
So the bottom point is, Alan, you don't think we're going to get nuked over the next 2 weeks?
I think it's unlikely that we'll be nuked in the next 2 weeks. The problem, I don't know how well tamed Russia's nuclear weapons are. I don't know. But it doesn't take a lot of stuff to keep them going, apparently. But Putin is many, many things. I don't think he's an idiot. If he decided to launch a nuclear weapon against, even in, and took out a big city in Ukraine, I don't think the West would sit there and say, by gum, that's naughty.
Right. So you don't think he'd fire him up near Scotland or down in London?
I don't think he will, because, is that where you're going? I don't think he will, because as soon as he presses the button, he's just killed millions of Russians, because the West will respond.
Yeah.
So
I think we've all seen the scenarios, haven't we, on the internet? You're like, oh, bloody hell. To say the least. Aye. Right, well, that's good. Thanks a lot for your advice there, Alan.
Well, it wasn't advice, but if I turn out to be wrong, you ain't going to call me and tell me, are you? You're going to be toast.
I'll see you up there at the gates a bit. Oh, you bugger, what a word with you.
There's not much chance of me being near the gates, Stewart. Have a good night. 0800 218 2255. How do Gerald?
Hello.
Hello.
How are we?
I don't know. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm not too bad, buddy. Quick question now. I've been noticing a lot of the taxis down to the Liverpool area. Now, these are all from like Wolverhampton and Birmingham.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me, Alan?
I can, but you keep breaking up. Try again.
I've been noticing around my area, the transport, like the taxis, like the private hire companies and that. I don't want to mention any names, but they've got taxis working from like Wolverhampton and Birmingham and
when you say taxis, do you mean the black cabs, as they're called, or do you mean...
private hire ones.
Right.
Private hire taxis, like...
And what makes you, without telling me the name or any numbers or anything, what makes you think they're from other places than Liverpool?
Because they've got like plates on the back of the cars, Alan, saying Wolverhampton.
Right.
So I've just come in now, not long back, up on Prescott Road, East Prescott Road. I've just been on the inside lane to turn left, which was behind the bus, and he's come from the outside lane, so I just come on the inside lane behind the bus. Alongside me, and nearly took me out. They don't know where they're going. It's like, you know what I mean? They don't know the area. Obviously, I said to him, "Mate, you want to go there? You want to go this thing?" And he couldn't even answer me back. He just looked at me, put his hand up, and a farting fell when it was.
Right. Well, report it to what used to be called the Watch Committee, but tell the Liverpool authorities. They're the ones that issue the relevant licences. Good to talk to you. How do George?
Hello, this is George here.
Hello, George.
Hello, so basically I've been driving around Manchester a lot recently, and I saw some protests today about like oil strikes, and I just thought it's so stupid. I just wanted to get your opinion on it.
Oil strike? You'll have to...
Yeah, well, no, people standing in the road and stopping people driving because they're against oil. I just thought you might think it's as stupid as I think it's stupid.
I don't think it's either stupid or clever.
Really? Why?
Well, I don't have a view.
Driving around and that, and then like random people are just stood in the road, really just annoying people that want to get about.
Well, we have a right to protest.
Do you think they have electric cars?
I've no idea.
Do you think that all them people that are protesters have
George, you'll have to slow your questions down, because as soon as I start to answer, another one fires in. I'm not clever enough to keep up with you. So be a bit slower, and I'll do my best.
My first question would be, the people who are protesting, how do you think they get around? Like,
I have no idea.
Do you think there is an active mode of transport?
I'm sure they all use whatever transport they think is appropriate for the journey upon which they intend to embark.
Oh, really? So do you not think they get about in electric vehicles?
I have no idea. They may not have vehicles at all. I have no idea.
Is this something that you don't have a passionate opinion on?
Well, I can't invent an answer that will tell you what kind of vehicle they do or do not drive. I don't know any of them.
Okay, I just wanted to get your opinion on people that protest against the oil and stop people from driving around.
I think in our society we have the right to protest. And protest usually means inconvenience for others.
That is a very magnanimous opinion of you.
I've been called lots of things. That's a new one.
So what is something you feel strongly about?
There's very little that I feel strongly about, and there's nothing that I feel strongly enough about to protest. But then, that's just me.
Okay, well, thanks for your time.
It's my pleasure. That's why I exist. I'll do Balladay.
Hello, Mr. Allan Beswick. Good evening.
Good evening.
TV today, so it's not really working that way. Hold on. Couple of things. First of all, I want to go back to the Kennedy assassination.
Okay.
I was watching a few things about the Kennedy assassination. There was one which is actually kind of like a document. Not document. What do you call it? It's not fact. It's a dramatization on what led to the assassination. And in here they were saying Kennedy was against the Cuban thing when they invaded Cuba, and the Cuban Missile Crisis, and also Vietnam, and the industrial military complex. These guys met and said, if we're going to take him out, we're going to make it look like a lunatic done it, because that's how we take our president out, so that it doesn't come back on us. Then the other ones I was watching was about the investigation and all that, and it seems as if they botched this thing big time. There was one where 2 guys were supposed to initial the bullet that they found, and they found out that one initiated at the time 8 o'clock in the evening, and then the next one initiated 7:30 in the evening. So the one who initiated first saw it second, and the one that saw it first initiated after him, but he put the times down wrong. Then they also said, a gentleman said he was supposed to, in his capacity, he's supposed to have seen that bullet and signed out for it. And he said he never did, he never saw it, he don't know what he's talking about. Then the pathologist that's supposed to have done the autopsy, these guys were new guys out of the military, and they have never done an autopsy in their life, and they were told to do it. You're doing it. They had no choice. They were doing it. Then about the one, you might have heard this, called the magic bullet, which is supposed to have gone into Kennedy and come out his chest and then swerve twice and end up on the left-hand side of the front car somehow. But they was trying to explain that by saying Penny was in a different position that lined it all up, and it was Gerald Ford that said, wait a minute, suppose we put Kennedy higher than he was, it will account for all that. And that's what they said in the end. So basically, that's what they said happened in the Kennedy assassination. But over the years, they keep on bringing stuff out. So, hang on, what's that doing in there? What's that doing in there? Was there more than one gunman? Really on that stuff, they don't know. Anyway, I'll leave that a minute. I'm going to ask you a question of you now. How many countries in Africa issue their own currency?
No idea.
Okay. Gentleman, I don't know him. He wasn't Nigerian. I say that for a fact. He said there are only 4 countries in Africa that issue their own currency. And I remember, sir, because we were going back a while, somebody told me, said, well, look, if I issue the currency of that country, I don't care what kind of government you put in there, I run that country, I control it, because I've said what their financial status is. And if you look at what France has done, France got to all their colonies and said, well, look, we're going to issue your currency. And they have since their whole their independence. And then recently they now said to the West African countries, oh, you want to get this new currency going? Everyone said, yeah, we want to do it. Oh, we'll issue it. Then the West African countries that are not English speaking said, no, we're not joining that. There's no way in this lifetime can we join something that we are not going to have control over. Apart from that, Happy New Year.
Thank you. Just for the record, I've just looked it up, and depends on what you mean by print. Nigeria is one of 4 African countries that prints its own currency, but that doesn't mean it has its own currency, so the answer isn't as precise. But thank you anyway. 0800 218 2255. If you want to join us, that's good. Pick up your phone, have your say. You can talk about absolutely anything. We really don't mind. I'm going to talk to James. I'm going to talk to Noah. I'm going to listen to Dom. That pumpkin pie, which I've got to tell you, I've not had many of them, but it's utterly vile. I don't like pumpkins, so it would be. 0800 218 2255. It's 11:30. We're here till 1, so we're about halfway through. How do James?
Hello, Alan.
Hello, James.
Hello. So, I've been following American news a lot and like the politics over there. And I think Donald Trump, he speaks his mind quite a lot. He might be very racist and sexist, but Joe Biden, he sleeps a lot. I wanted to get your thoughts on both of these characters.
I've never met either of them.
Have you listened to anything they've said?
Well, yes, but unfortunately, like all foreigners, I only get a edited and distilled version. And that's really not the way.
And what is your distilled version telling you?
That I need to know more about them to answer your question.
So, how much knowledge do you need before you form an opinion?
That's impossible to predict. You keep garnering knowledge via whatever process, and eventually, without warning, it leads you to an opinion.
How many hours of Donald Trump do you reckon you've consumed?
Not many. I wouldn't like to guess at it, but not many. One only gets the news bulletins and the occasional documentary. Most of what we see and hear over here are sound bites.
And Joe Biden?
Same thing. Most of what we see and hear over here are sound bites.
At what point would you feel comfortable forming an opinion?
I refer the gentleman to the answer I gave earlier.
So I've got a hard limit on how many hours I'd consume from an individual before I'd form an opinion.
Okay, and would you like to share how many hours that is with us?
135.7.
Right.
Do you think that's a fair number, or do you think that's not enough?
I have no idea. I can't predict or explain or guess or any other means of process how much knowledge you require in order for you to form an opinion. And if you think it's the figure you gave, then that is your privilege.
I really like that.
I didn't hear that bit, you broke up. It's probably just as well. But go on. What did you say?
I said I'd really like the opinion.
Well, one doesn't always get what one likes.
What is your strongest opinion you hold?
That you're a prat. How do Noah?
How do? Yeah, I thought about that guy in the last thing was asking a bit too many questions, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm here to talk about football and stuff. Can you hear me?
Not over the stupid music.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. Be silent.
Yeah, I'll be silent. I'm in like a bit of a rush right now, so I just drank like loads of magnesium citrate. But like, I'll try and get my point across as good as I can. So, you know, like, you a fan of football, Alan?
No.
You're not a fan of football? Well, that kind of like degrades my point and shit. So, like, back to my next question, like, how many cum shots can you take on your face and shit?
Do have a good night, despite your insanity. 0800 218 2255. If you want to join us, you can. Pick up your phone, have your say, even if your balls haven't dropped, like we've just witnessed. But you're still welcome. Germany and America are sending tanks finally to Ukraine. The UK has done it already. And now they say they need warplanes. So the Ukraine, well, we need warplanes. How long before they say we need troops? And what will we say then? We're running out of human beings. We need more troops. And then there's this story, and it's a ghastly story. A young lass has died after spraying everything in her bedroom with deodorant. The fumes killed her, apparently. I mean, dear God. It's impossible to know where to lay the blame if blame needs to be laid anywhere, but it's disturbing, isn't it? I mean, I have this question. Why? Why have we humans, particularly in the West, but why have we allowed ourselves to be convinced by smell manufacturers that smelling like a human is bad? That's what we all used to do. That's what they do throughout most of the world. Humans smell like humans. Now we smell like some kind of ghastly chemical that's been pumped out in some god-awful factory because it's got flowers on the front and a rather burning sensation of aroma. It's a good idea. And I reckon it all started with Lifebuoy soap. You have to be of a certain age, but it's back in the days of black and white television, the early days of advertising on telly. In other words, the early days of advertising, ITV and all that gubbins. But there used to be an advert where they showed you a person on a train. Well, it was actually on the tube where they stood holding on to a rail, or on a bus, the tube, the underground in London, or on a bus when they're holding on to the bar on the ceiling. You remember those days? And they're there standing up, and the person next to them turns, and their nose appears to be in the area of their armpit. And they look to their friend, another friend, and they go, B-O, which meant body odour. And so everybody said, right, how are we going to get rid of B.O.? And somebody said, well, what the advert said was, what you need to do is you need to wash with Lifebuoy soap because it cures B.O., body odour. In other words, this is the beginning of the end of people, human beings in this country, smelling like human beings. Now we have to smell like some chemical factory pretending it smells of flowers. It's absolutely awful. And then we started spraying it on, didn't we? And that did the ozone layer, apparently. Some scientists say it's nearly mended since we stopped using aerosols of that kind. And now other scientists say, well, it's not as nearly mended as you think. It's weird. Very, very weird. Why can't we just smell like humans? Yes, by all means clean, but squirting gubbins on is just stupid. Done the 5 years, this is a dreadful story. Absolutely dreadful. And it ought to shame us. It ought to shame you. It shames me. And one of the North West MPs was a long and hard campaigner on this subject. But you know the story about the 70s and 80s where there was insufficient blood for transfusions, so the National Health Service bought it on the open market from America. In America, they at the time, they're better now, but at the time, they were less... Well, they used to sell it. You used to be able to go into a donation place and sell your blood. So all sorts of people went and sold it. Some people because they were altruistic, and others went because they needed the money and sold their blood. And so it wasn't as well looked after, and the checks weren't as good as they were at the time in this country. A lot better now. And the National Health Service bought that blood and gave it to people. And the people that need more blood than most are people who suffer from the condition called haemophilia, when they bleed readily at the slightest knock. And so they have to have lots and lots of blood over time. And many of them at that time were given this blood, which is now described as tainted blood. And it's changed their lives for the worst. And MP called Alf Morris was campaigning, the late Alf Morris was campaigning for it for donkey's years. I remember interviewing him when I first came to the BBC, and that was back in the 80s. So that's a long time. And he campaigned right until the end of his life, and others have campaigned as well. And during the past 5 years, the government started to say, yeah, we need to do something about this. This is unacceptable. We need to sort it. And so they set up a government inquiry. The inquiry wasn't to apportion blame. The blame was already there, if blame's the right word. But the inquiry was about, to all intents and purposes, what people would get, what compensation they would get. That inquiry has been going on for 5 years. 5 years, for God's sake. And in that time, according to one report I read today, another 500 people have died. It's just extraordinary. This is the government that spent millions of pounds buying stuff that didn't work in COVID cases. They had to throw it away. They're trying to get the money back off companies. They chuck money about on COVID like there was no tomorrow. But these guys, these women and men who were given infected, tainted blood and suffered as a result, some of them have already had a payment, an interim payment. Some of them are dead, and 500 of them died during the 5 years of this government inquiry. It's just wrong. That's it. It is just wrong. 0800 218 2255. How do Paul?
Hiya.
Hiya.
I've got a song for you somewhat in the same vein as We'll Meet Again, which, by the way, I heard years ago, and it still made me smile when I heard it tonight.
Good.
Some time ago, there was a new Bishop of Chester being inaugurated. This is a quite true story. and he was on Rock North or Granada report or something, and he said to the reporter, "Oh, I have to learn a new song. I have to learn the Chester song." So, pan-faced, not. And the reporter said, "Oh, I've never heard it." And the bishop said, "Oh, it's quite popular. Chester song at twilight."
Very good.
I thank you, I'm not here all week.
No, indeed. I like that.
If I can make somebody smile once a day, I've done my job as a human being. Get up in the morning.
Absolutely, I'm all for that, Paul. Chester song at twilight. Are there any others? We've had Whale Meet Again.
No, I can't think of any, but that put me in mind of this bishop chap. I actually nearly got religion when I listened to that. Fantastic show, don't miss it, and I'll see you again.
I shall see you again indeed, Sir Paul. Has anyone got others to offer? Songs misheard, if you like. I mean, dear, we sound like we're nicking Peter Case stuff now, don't we? But we're not looking for lyrics in that way, but a song like "We'll Meet Again" for Whale Meet Again and Chester Song at Twilight. Any others? You tell me. 0800 218 2255. It carries on like this. We'll end up playing Hollands Meat Pies. But instead, we'll sit on the dock of the bay. There used to be a lot. Well, there was that here. Was it Whistling Jack Smith? I think that was the tune. I could easily be wrong. How do Jessica?
I was Kaiser Bill's Batman.
That was it?
Yeah.
Excellent. Whistling Jack Smith. I was Kaiser Bill's Batman.
Right. Well, Kipper, welk home in the hillside. Well, Kipper, welk home in the dell. You up for it?
I did indeed.
I love.
Thank you very much. Well, Kipper, Welsh home. Very good. Yeah, there's loads of them. What was the name of that firm? Mac something. Mac Fisheries. Yeah, they live like that. They could have had that. You remember Mac, you don't, do you? Mac Fisheries, as the name implies, was a chain. We didn't use those words those days, but it was a chain of fishmongers. They're in the high street all over the place. There's nothing in the high street now except bookmakers and charity shops, I guess. But, you know, they were there. And, Marks and Spencer's in Bolton, I've read that they're closing. And yet I've also read that they're opening up all over the place. Bigger stores. In fact, they're going to build a gigantic one or take over at the Trafford Centre in, Trafford. They're going to take over the store there. There was a big store there that's shut down. And apparently going to move. And their shop in the Trafford Centre is already huge. I suppose they're not going to keep them both. I don't know. I can't afford to go in anyway. There you know. Do you remember when it was knickers and what was that, chicken Kiev? Do you remember that? That's all you got. You went to Marks and Spencer, you needed knickers or you needed chicken Kiev. And then you got one of each of them and the job were right. And then, now what was his name? I'm rubbish at this kind of stuff. The bloke who used to present the news programme late at night, and he also does University Challenge, him. And he complained about Marks and Spencer's underpants, saying they didn't give him the support they used to give him. Saying, well, they've changed. You used to be able to rely on a pair of Marks and Spencer's knickers, but not anymore. I was at a conference once, years and years ago, and it was all sorts, and there was all sorts of people there, but they decided that they couldn't resolve the issues at that meeting. So they had a chat around the table like they do. There's about 100 people at this blessed thing. And they decided it would carry it over to the next day. And I had enough underwear to get me through, as it were, but I didn't bring extra. I mean, I didn't. So I thought, well, I'll nip to Marks and Spencer's. and get a pair of socks and a pair of pants, you know. Job will be right. Shirt, I can wear a shirt twice, you know. It'll be right. And I got there, and the queue at Marks and Spencer was made up entirely of men and women buying underwear for this conference. Very strange. 0800 218 2255. Nobody knows where a strange mind wanders. How do Jeff?
Hello, Alan.
Hello.
Nice to talk to you. Yeah, I was just having a bath, and he played that American Pie song. And I was just, you know, when it finished, I was just getting out of the bath kind of thing, and then I heard you say something about American Pie. You know what I mean? Do you know what that song is actually about? Do you know what it's about? That song.
Somebody told me, and I've forgotten. So no.
It's about the death of Buddy Holly.
Oh right.
That's when he says the music died.
The day the music died, yes, of course.
And American Pie was actually the name of the plane that he died in.
Was it? And I'm supposed to be a Buddy Holly fan.
That's what this actual song's about. It's not food, it's the actual name of that plane that he hired.
And it was him, Big Bopper. Who was the other one? Him, Big Bopper.
I can't
Ricky
remember.
Valance. Ricky Valance?
Yeah,
Ricky Valance.
And there was a guitarist in his band who was supposed to be on that plane. And this, I think, with Big Bopper or that Valance one, they kept asking him all night, will you swap, you know, because they wanted to get all the rest were freezing on the bus. You know, and Buddy Holly wanted to get there a bit earlier and have a bit of a break, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For the next gig, which will happen presumably the next day. And in the end, this right at the death, as he said to Buddy, he said, I'm just going back and checking all the equipment's there. You know, that we've got it all out, you know what I mean? Which he'd never ever done before, this guy. You know, and as he did that, he don't really know why he did it himself, but as he did it, this Valance or the Big Bopper, he went with some of his fans, and he said to him as he went out, will you swap for me? You know, and he'd asked him about 100 times that night, and for some reason he said yeah. You know what I mean? And so when they went back to where Buddy Holly was, he said, yeah, I've given him my ticket, you know. He said, I need to send some money to my mum. So he took his wallet. He had to get some money out, apparently. This guitarist guy, you know, that's what he planned to do. He wanted to get there early, to send some money to his mum or something. And that's why that when they found the plane, they thought he was dead because they had his wallet.
Of course, yes. Oh,
yeah,
dear.
and he's still alive. This guy, you know what I mean?
Blimey.
Yeah. So
it's interesting those sort of coincidences, isn't it?
It's a bit before my time, Buddy Holly. But you know, I mean, I was playing the drums just pre-Beatles days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which
I quite like Buddy Holly. Yeah. I quite like Buddy Holly. I remember Paul McCartney bought the rights to all his music.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which looked after Buddy Holly's widow quite well, of course, as a result of that. So every time we play a Buddy Holly record now, which is not often enough in my opinion, it's McCartney that gets the cash, or some of it.
I've got a feeling that, I'm not certain, I've got a feeling that his wife did not been married very long, had they?
Not a long time, no. I think they've been sweethearts.
They've been married about 6 months or a year or something. And I think she was pregnant, and she lost the baby, apparently.
Oh, dear.
With the stress of it all.
Blimey.
But, he was a big influence on the Beatles, definitely.
Yeah, well, on all sorts of people. He was an incredible, and very, this will sound rude, but very aware of himself. Very, very aware of himself. You know, where his position is and where he wants it to be and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I think he was even though he wasn't particularly good looking or anything, he was a bit of a, I wouldn't say a big head, but that Peggy Sue that they named the song after, it weren't called Peggy Sue initially, and the drummer was going out with this Peggy Sue, and he persuaded him to actually name it. It was something called Peggy Lou or something. It was going. So I can't remember the exact name, and then when he played it at this gig, just after they released the record. And this girl was only about 18, and she went to this gig because she was going out with the drummer, and as they went out afterwards, he says, this Buddy Holly says to her, "Aren't you glad that your mum and dad named you after my song?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was that kind of wit, you know what I mean?
Quite a guy.
Sorry?
Quite a guy. He did the London Palladium, didn't he? He toured Britain. Did London Palladium. Obviously, I never saw him, and I don't know that there's any recordings of him at that time, but they didn't record it.
Well, I've got a documentary on that was on Sky that I've recorded, and there's quite a lot of information on that about that. He went from Australia to do. He did like a bit of a mini world tour, you know. And he was in Australia, and then when he came back, he come back through London, and he did quite a few nights in England. And the Comper, I can't remember who he was. The one that Morecambe Wise always used to call. What was he called? They used to always have him. He was a singer and a bit of a comedian. Des O'Connor, yeah, and he was the Comper, and he was only 18. Des O'Connor, he was the Comper for that tour. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
I think he's still going, Des O'Connor.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
He's knocking on a bit now, like.
Apparently the Beatles were glued to that London Palladium show, apparently. I heard Paul McCartney on a documentary talk about it. They were watching it like an eagle, you know, like, did they use a capo for that? Like, you know, the capo where they moved up and played a different key, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were really into Buddy Holly, you know.
Chuck Berry and all that lot, but Buddy Holly and Chuck Berry were worlds apart in so many ways. Good on you, Jeff. Good to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Buddy Holly as well, he morphed into doing like the songs with orchestras, didn't he? Well before his time, you know.
Yeah, I mean, True Love Ways, lots of violins at the beginning.
That's right,
Great song. Good to talk to you, Jeff. Have a good night. Thank you very much indeed. And I said Des O'Connor's still with us. He's not. He's been dead 2 years, so he's not even nearly with us. How do Bernard?
Hello there, Alan. How are you?
I'm awfully well, thank you.
I'm just concerned about what that guy's just been talking about there, because I think he was completely wrong. The American Pie, the plane, was never called American Pie.
Right.
It was just had a number to it. And because Don McLean made that particular song and everyone considered it was about the Buddy Holly, he accepted it. And apparently they were on tour and the Big Bopper was suffering from a very bad cold. And Buddy wants to he wants to go ahead and sort things out. And he said to the guy he was talking about, a guy called Waylon Jennings, and he's a country singer.
Yeah.
Sadly, he died about 2 years ago. And he said, he was supposed to go in the plane, and he said to him, would you mind if I got to put the Big Bopper on, and the Ricky Valens, and to get them ahead, so hopefully he'd be better for the next show, you know, by the time you get there in the bus. And so I think that guy's wrong in that respect, because I do not think that the plane was called American Pie.
Right. Well, I'm not. I mean, I'll have to take both your words for it, which just gets gets confusing because I've no idea. I'm just looking it up now. They chartered. Right. The rich are killed when their chartered Beechcraft Bonanza plane crashes in Iowa, but that's just a name of it, really, isn't it? That, you know, the type.
Yeah, well, I think it had a number on the tail. I did have.
Well, they all have they all have numbers. That's kind of.
Yeah, but it was never called American Pie.
No.
He wrote a song that everybody thought that it was going to be, you know, a part of Buddy Holly, so he kept it on John McLean. And eventually he actually came through and said, well, no, it really wasn't. Well, that's what I've heard anyway, and I run a country music show, you know. And so I'd like someone to sort of try and say, well, you're wrong as well, but I don't think so, because usually when I get facts like that, with living in Liverpool and working with all the bands, you get all these little tit-tats that you never forget, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Things that things that stick in your mind, and people go, how the hell do you remember that? But you just do, like you do. You know, things that happen in your life, you remember them.
Yeah, you do, don't you?
That's the way it is.
The thing I find about memory is the randomness of it sometimes.
Yeah,
you're just sitting there minding your own business, as it were. You know, you're perhaps watching television, sitting on a bus in a taxi or whatever, and this memory comes into your head with no apparent stimulation. It just arrives. You just think, oh, I remember. Bloody hell. You know, it's just very, very weird.
You know, it is things like that. I mean, there's one incident. Oh, I've got a few more minutes, but about you know, Bernard Manning.
Yeah.
He apparently turned around one day and said that Arthur Askew was about as funny as Woodworm in the Cripple's Crutch.
Yes.
Now,
which is not politically correct, but go on.
Well, no, but you see, what happened was Arthur actually was on the wane, and Arthur was very respected. Ken Dodge said that Arthur Askew was one of the funniest men he's ever worked with and seen, because he was so good at ad-libbing. But I suppose at the time he was of the time, you know. But he made a comeback, but then he started to fade. And I spoke with Bernard about this, and I said, "Well, do you think that's a bit wrong what you said about Arthur Askew?" And he said, "Listen, son," he said, "I know Arthur very well." He said, and I rang him up and said to him, "Listen, I'm going to say this about you," and he actually agreed, Arthur, that Bernard would say that. And of course, the press fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. And next thing, he's on the New Faces panel. So, you know, it's things like that you keep in your mind. You think, and like people you meet, and you say to yourself, "Did I really meet these people?" But you know, you do. You know, it's an incredible thing. I mean,
it's balmy. The world is balmy.
When I run a club of witness, and we've had many big artists on there who have come. But in early days, with a guy called John Jessup, who I know pretty goodly, he used to do a soul show, and I had the youngsters meet the soul, and I had these two people on the same bill 3 times. Honestly, this is true. One was Gary Barlow. He was only 14, or was he 15? And Kim Marsh, because they were both from well, Gary came from Prodigy, but he played as a keyboard player in the Halton Legion in Runcorn. And of course, Kim was part of a children's show. And I tell people this, and they go, "No, it wasn't true," but it was true. You know, really was.
They all start somewhere, don't they? Very few people arrive on the scene not having learnt some of their craft. I mean, even these bands, if that's the right word for them, but these groups that they put together now that just sing, even most of those have been doing a bit somewhere to get
they're manufactured bands, so aren't they? We call them things.
Yeah, we do. But they're manufactured as a band, but they each bring a recognisable talent that they've been honing, one hopes. I mean, occasionally one gets through that's just walked off the street and said, "Oh, I've never had a go at that. I'll have a go," and they get in a band, a manufactured band.
That's true.
But
well,
most of them have done a bit, haven't they? You know.
Well, in Gary's case, he was playing the keyboard in the Legion in Halton when he was 14. And he came to me just before, and he said, "Bernie," he said, "I won't see you anymore. I might not see you for a while." He said, "I'm going to join a band, and it may be okay." And he gave me 4 records, "Love Is in the Air" by a guy called Curtis Rush, and that is Gary Barlow.
There you go.
So there you are.
We'll have to look for that. Curtis Rush, "Love Is in the Air." I wonder if we can find it.
Honestly, I played this, Alan. I said to him, "Gary, that's bloody awful."
Well, speaking of people who've made records that are bloody awful, I'm going to play one for you now that is bloody awful. And there's a reason for it, but good to hear from you, Bernard. I arrived home the other day, and the post person had been, and there was a letter on the mat. Yeah, I know. Very straight. Oh, Jeff's back on arguing. Jeff.
It's not an argument.
Okay.
I just happen to hear that chap just debunk everything I said.
Yes.
And I'm as certain as I can be that on this documentary they actually showed a photograph of the plane, and they homed in on the photograph on the actual name of the plane. It was printed on the side. I don't think I made it up.
Well, no.
You won't make it up. On the internet will tell you the. I wouldn't have come on with like a furry story. You know what I mean?
No, the story you came on with, I've actually heard before.
Yeah.
So you're not making it up. That doesn't mean it's true.
It's true. I agree. Yeah, but I don't think they're making a documentary. I don't think they will put evidence. I can picture it in my mind, seeing this plane. It was only a 5-seater plane. They weren't a big plane.
Yeah, it was only a tipsy job.
Yeah, and I can see this American Pie actually on the side. He might have printed it himself. It looked a professional job, but it weren't like a big airline kind of thing. But I'm pretty sure it was called American Pie, the plane, and that's what the song's about. You know what I mean?
Right.
What else could American Pie mean? You know what I mean?
We've no idea. It's
that's
this thing, isn't it?
Just because we don't it with food, yeah.
I'm
not calling you.
No, it's all right. I don't care if you are, but you're not.
No, yeah.
But it doesn't matter. Just because we don't know what it means doesn't mean that we're free to attribute a believable meaning to it. But I'd heard that
it was a massive hit in the day, wasn't it? Probably in the 70s. I'm not sure exactly when it was a hit.
American Pie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was huge.
It was a massive number one.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure the whole story came out then. I'm pretty sure it did. You know what I mean? But
we may never know.
I've still got this documentary. I can probably, not today. I can probably have a look at it and just double check. But there's no doubt on this documentary that's what they say, and there's no doubt about it whatsoever. You know what I mean?
I'm just looking now at photographs of the crash site.
Yeah.
And without debunking your story in any way, shape or form, because I've only got the photographs that's in front of me now, and there's no name that I can see on the aircraft.
Well, the plane was wrecked, weren't it? I think the photograph I saw was before the plane was wrecked.
Oh, right, as it was in the days before now I understand.
When they were doing the documentary, they must have gone into it and found a photograph of this plane before it crashed. You know what I mean?
Right. Would they... Well, I mean, it's now possible that... Because I'm just reading the stuff I was just reading about the crash itself.
Yeah.
They said what kind of plane it was. And it is possible, like they have... When there's been a plane crash and it's reported in the news, but they don't know much about what went on, you will often see that they'll put up a photograph of a plane of that type. And they say, the Allan Beswick aircraft. I use that because I don't want to use a trade name. But the Allan Beswick aircraft crashed on such and such a day, such and such a place, and, it is suspected no survivors, blah, blah, blah. And then they say it was one of these planes, the British plane manufacturer K4944, and they show you one.
The impression I got from this documentary was that the bloke who owned the plane, he called it that. That's the impression. Like somebody, people name a car, don't they, or whatever,
Apparently they do, yes.
Yeah, whatever, you know what I mean? So, but he went to the trouble of putting a sticker on it, you know what I mean?
Well, there we go. As for people naming cars, I used to know a vicar who had a car and the registration number was WLM and then the numbers. And he first of all started calling it William, and then eventually you got a vicar driving about in a car that he calls Willie. And I still enjoy that. But then I'm a 9-year-old boy at heart, but thank you very much. Good on you. Hey, we're all going awfully well. How do Simon?
Well, that was a disgusting joke for a vicarious person, but I'd like to talk. I enjoyed that song of Buddy Holly, All My Love, All My Kisses.
All My Love, All My Kisses.
I want to talk about Bernard Manning.
Go on then.
Bernard Manning. I was with my brother and my sister-in-law, and I think we're all feeling fed up going into this pub, and there was three fellas. One of them wearing a big fur coat, and it was Bernard Manning. I thought, oh, that's the last person I want to meet. And Bernard just said, hello, people. And my brother and my sister-in-law used to go to his concerts after that. He was a nice fella. He was just putting it on and all that. I'm a big hard guy and all that. They were putting it on, and they used to go, and they said there were black people there, and they were waiting for Bernard to insult them, and they said it was great. It was nothing like they said it was.
No, he had an act. Whether he was a great guy or not is for others. I didn't know him well, but I knew him reasonably well, and he's a very funny man, of that there's no doubt. Some of his jokes were not by any means to my taste, not by any means. I actually made a short documentary for Radio 4 about horrible comedians. So there was Roy Chubby Brown, and there was Bernard, and a couple of others, and we talked
Roy's
about...
a good man. Roy's a good man as well, I've heard that. He's a good man.
Well,
I've seen a programme about him. He said, somebody came in to criticise him, he said, just bugger off. Roy, I've heard about Roy. He wanted to be an ordinary comedian. He didn't make it, so he got a bit rude. And he did make it.
Fine. But the point I was making was that what they do, these comedians, be they the modern equivalent or the old-fashioned ones, they have an act. They find a routine that works for them, and they perform it, and that's fine. And that's what Bernard did. And as I say, some of his stuff was not to my taste, and eventually was out of step with most is overdoing it, but by a large proportion of people found his stuff unacceptable. And indeed, he never did any of that stuff on television because he would have just been got rid of. You know, Johnny Hamp wouldn't have worn it because it's not broadcastable. But yeah, lots of people enjoyed that humour, and it's hard to criticise. I had one problem with Bernard, and I've had this conversation with him at least once, but probably 2 or 3 times, and he always said, as you're sort of saying, it's just an act. I'm just playing it, you know. I don't dislike black people, blah blah blah. Some of my best friends and all that caper. And he said, I insult everybody, and that way I'm making it known that I'm not insulting anybody. I'm just telling jokes. And on another occasion, he said, I never tell jokes about disabled people.
That's right.
And so I said, well, why don't you tell jokes about disabled people? And his answer, I think, negated all that stuff about it's just an act. Because he said, they can't help it. It's not their fault. They're disabled.
That's right. That's right.
Now,
He's a good man.
Well, if you then apply that to his other targets, and it's everybody, you know, including redheads, it's not my fault I've got red hair. But he was prepared to attack redheads. He was prepared to attack Asian people. He was prepared to attack Afro-Caribbean people. He was prepared to attack gay people. He was prepared to attack... So there's a whole list of people whose...
Yes, but Alan, you said all these people, but you might have heard it on Radio 4, and it was yesterday, and it was, I think they called him Ray, he was autistic. I don't know if you heard it, but he was brilliant. He was talking about a lot of people are coming out autistic nowadays, but real autistic people wear nappies and all that. And people like Greta Thunberg are coming out as autistic. And I know it's everybody who thinks they're useless.
Simon, we're not discussing at this moment. We'll go on to it if you wish. But Bernard Manning said he didn't tell jokes about disabled people because disabled people can't help the fact that they're disabled. But all those other groups of people that he was prepared and did tell jokes about couldn't help it either.
Yeah, that's what this thing was on Radio 4 just before 1 o'clock news. it was a lad, and he was autistic, and he was telling it what it's like to be autistic. And people like Greta Thunberg are coming out. And I know I'm slightly changing subject from Bernard, but I'm not, because Bernard was saying that as well.
Well, I've never heard him heard him discuss autistic people, but autism, like many other conditions of emotion and personality, character, and all the rest of it, come in degrees. All of it. So you can be autistic. You can be autistic without being totally physically and mentally incapable. And if some people don't agree with that, then fine. I defend their right to be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was on radio for it was very good. He actually had this idea, and I do go for the bit one. Probably I'm a bit autistic on a spectrum, but he had this idea that he went on about a search engine on internet, and he said that it's about sticking garlic up your nose and it cures things. Well, I wish it had cured my hypochondria.
It's a good gag. I don't know what it's got to do with autism, but it's a good gag. Good to talk to you, Simon. 0800 218 2255, just after midnight. We're here till 1. If you want to join us, there is time. I'll do nobody. I was going to say hello to somebody, but that somebody is no longer there, so I won't, because that would be pointless. I was saying I came home, I think it was Thursday. Came home, minding my own business, come in. There's post on the mat. Some of it addressed to me and others, and one was addressed to the occupier and our address. So I opened it, and it was a letter. Dear, whatever, no name, just, I can't remember what it said now, but dear person, for want of a better thing. And it was from the Jehovah Witnesses. And it was posted in the mail. And I thought, blimey, they've changed. They used to go round, didn't they, with their little black briefcases and knock on the door. And some people didn't like it. But now, maybe they still do that, I don't know. But round here, they send you a letter saying, we're the Jehovah's Witnesses. And this is what God says, and blah, blah, blah. And I just thought, well, thank you, God, for doing all that. And then threw the letter in the bin. Because if they don't come to the door, they're just, I don't want them at night, but if they don't, that's what they do. I sang a song about it, written by Les Barker. And it had Terry Wogan on it, Mike Harding, who else? Oh, lots of people, including me, but the others were famous. And it was produced and sold on an album called Guide Cats for the Blind, and there was a second one, Guide Cats for the Blind 2. And it was to raise money, it's going back a bit, it was to raise money to provide computers for blind people who had difficulty with computers and the like at the time, because computers couldn't be made to speak as easily as they can now. The whole thing can be done now. It's quite incredible. But at the time it couldn't, so it was raising money for that, and it was Guide Cats for the Blind. All the songs written by Les Barker and all performed by people he asked to perform them, and I knew Les quite well, so he asked me to do it. I quite enjoyed doing it, and my apologies to the people that recorded it and the band who were doing the other singing, because I don't remember their name, and it'd be nice to plug them, because they, like me, did it for now. 0800 218 2255. I'll do Emma.
Hello.
Hello, Emma. What would you like to talk about?
I know, it's funny because I like to go for a walk on Saturday nights, and obviously because it's spitting here in Stockport, I stopped at the bus stop and I just saw this random number stuck to the bus stop. And I rang it and I've gone through to you guys.
What? A number stuck to the bus stop?
Honestly. Like, where the bus timetable is on the bus stop?
Indeed, yeah.
I thought, I'll ring it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there was nothing saying what it was. It was just a number with nothing else.
No, apparently you spell Thursdays as Tuesdays. I didn't know where the H went.
Right.
It was spelled Tuesdays and Sundays. I thought it was Tuesdays. Must be Thursday.
Right. Well, we only do.
Well,
There's no such thing as bad publicity, clearly. And where'd you been? You've been for a good.
To Stockport.
Yeah.
No, actually, the bus stop's 1 minute from my property. I thought,
Yeah.
let's ring it, let's have a laugh. And, yeah.
What,
that's
to
the
each?
Story.
Right. Well, that's a good story. Yeah.
Bit weird, but different,
Yeah.
Ballamore and all that.
Right. Doesn't matter how you get them, as long as you get them, I reckon. But there you are. That is the weirdest I've ever heard. When I did a late...
Sorry.
Go on. No, please, you carry on.
Your Jehovah's thing.
Yeah.
What was it called about a cat?
Well, the song was called Jehovah's Witness at the Door, but the album, the LP, was called Guide Cats for the Blind.
Guys. Oh, it's funny because as I mentioned it, my cat started following me up the road. Oh. Sorry.
Well, you're guiding the cat rather than it guiding you, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, you know the story.
As long as you find your way, well, yeah, cats, God, they're a law unto themselves.
Yeah, so goodness knows where your number's got to, a village in Cheadle, but here we are.
Well, thank you to whoever put it there, because it got you to ring us and we had a nice chat. And you must ring again sometime.
Oh.
Lovely. Good on you, Emma. Thank you very much indeed. What a strange thing to happen. But how did you get our number? Emma got it. Sorry. As long as it wasn't the lavatory wall, we're doing all right. But she saw it just randomly stuck to a bus stop. How very odd. I nearly said the BBC spends a fortune on publicity, but let's be honest, it doesn't. How do, Les?
All right, Alan. I've just been listening to you again on your song. What made you think about a song like that?
What, just now or originally?
Yeah, just now, what you've just done there. How old is it?
Oh, it's oh, God. 20 years, probably. What made me think of it was today, well, not today, but the other day, when I got the post, you go to the door, there's the post, picked it up, there was a letter to the occupier, and I normally just turf them in the bin, but this was handwritten. So I thought, I better read it. It might be someone who's afraid of complaining and wants to make a complaint about something I've done or whatever. So I thought I'd better read it. I opened it, and it was a letter from the Jehovah's Witness.
Right.
And well, normally they knock at your door, don't they? But apparently they're sending letters out now instead. Where they're getting all the money for the postage, I don't know. But instead of knocking on your door and trying to convince you that God is good and all the rest of it, and Jehovah knows all about it, they now get a letter.
I think the reason why they're knocking on doors now is because people are scared to open the doors, aren't they?
They may be. Yeah.
In this day and age now, people are scared to open the doors, you see.
Good Lord.
So I think they still want to get their message to you.
Yeah.
In a different way, if you see what I mean.
Yes. And good luck to them, say I. They're doing no harm, are they? Trying to do good for people.
I know quite a few, like Jehovah's Witnesses.
Mm.
And I know the reason why they're putting the letters in the box. And that's the reason, because a lot of people don't really want to, they just don't want to front people in this day and age.
Right.
But they still need, and I think their message is that they still need to get to people just to let the message out, really.
Well, yeah, the whole essence of their faith is, hence their name, Jehovah's Witness. They are giving witness to Jehovah, and they, like many religions, attempt to convince others that they ought to join their particular branch of faith. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's called proselytising. Let them get on with it. I don't mind.
No, I thought it was good I thought it was a good idea, because I heard about the letters.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, well, on the same lines as yourself, why are you doing that? And then one of them explained to me that we're finding in this day and age, quite a lot of people are scared to open the doors.
Good heavens.
Because of who's behind them, you see.
Yeah, I suppose that to a certain extent depends on where you live and who you are.
Yes,
but yes,
well,
I get that. And I suppose in the times of COVID, I suppose they might have started then sending out letters and thought, actually, this is a lot easier than, not easier, but a lot more effective or what have you than wandering about knocking on doors.
You know what, I never even thought about that COVID, because with the COVID being there, you wouldn't have been allowed to really knock on.
No, you wouldn't. No, quite right. Interesting, Les. Thank you. That may well be the explanation.
Oh, thanks for you, Al.
Cheers. Have a good night. 0800 218 2255. In case you're wondering, I for the last time will say the song's called Jehovah's Witness at the Door, and it was by Les Barker. I performed it with the help of 3 musicians who were brilliant, and it then went on an album called Guide Cats for the Blind, along with Terry Wogan, Mike Harding, and I've forgotten all the others, but some of the Radio 1 DJs and all sorts of people were on it, and it was quite successful, made money for that particular charity. 0800 218 2255. How do Jacqueline?
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Jehovah's Witnesses. Oh, a long, long time ago, I had somebody coming to my door, and I was really, really unwell and rough. And they introduced themselves, and they could see I was pretty well ill. And there was never, ever a mention of religion. All they wanted to do is to make sure I was all right. Could they do shopping for me? Could do anything for me? And they were so lovely, without any mention at all about trying to convert me into, a religion. And they were wonderful.
Excellent. Good. I've heard similar tales. You know those young American lads that go around proselytizing their particular brand of Christianity years ago?
Yeah.
And they too, I've heard lots of stories of them realising the person they were talking to was in a more direct need than their soul saving, and got involved and did things for them, which you would hope of a religious community that is what they would do and often do.
There was never, ever any mention of God and Jesus, whatever. All they wanted to do was to help me. But then another time, I was out in the garden, in my paddock at the time, and they came along and started to go on and on and on. So I had a little discussion with them, shall we say. And whatever they said, I said something back at them, and they couldn't wait to get away. It was quite funny. They couldn't get away, they couldn't get away quick enough, because everything they said, I counteracted what they said.
Right.
But the other people that I knew, the other people, when I was ill, they were so lovely. No mention of God and Jesus and scriptures or nothing. Can we do some shopping for you? Can we do some whatever. They just wanted to go and help me. And that was it. So I just thought I'd like to stick up for them in a way. I mean, let's face it, people are getting so violent these days. If you knock at the door, you get some big bully fellow, want to smack you in the face and whatever. People are not as nice as they used to be. Instead of saying, no, thank you, they just wanted to lash out and go off. And it's very sad. It's very sad that the world has gone that way. I mean, a 15-year-old girl was stabbed to death today. Now, that's terrible. But a 16-year-old boy, what is the matter with people? Why don't we just behave, grow up, and act properly and normally? Anyway, there's another one that I wanted to ask you. You know the EHIT card, EH1C, when you go abroad? You had the EHIT card, didn't you?
Yes.
Does that still work? Or does, since Brexit, has that stopped?
I think it's stopped.
Just wondering. Okie dokie. Right, thanks very much then. Right.
I'm just looking it up now just to make sure I'm getting it right. The free European health insurance card is being phased out following the Brexit deal in favour of the also free global health insurance card, which you can still use an EHIC for now, but if you've not got one, you'll normally need to apply for a GHIC. So that makes it sound like it's still valid, but that's the internet providing that information. And I'm just looking now at the government website. The European Global Health Insurance Card lets you get state health care in Europe at a reduced cost or sometimes for free. If you have a European health insurance card, it will be valid until the expiry date on the card. Once it expires, you'll need to apply for a GHIC to replace it. So it is still valid, but it's not as generous as it was previously.
Because there was a discussion earlier on about paying for this and paying for that. And in Europe, I had a fall and I broke a piece of bone off my shoulder. Here, you'd probably, I'm going to sue them for compensation. But I tripped over what do you call it? Like a thing above the ground. What do you call it? Like
I don't know. You tripped over something. We've established
that. And I had to go to hospital, and they charged me €25 for the initial consultation.
Okay.
Which is what people have to do. They charge €25.
Well, it depends.
Well, it was then.
It depends what country you're in and what the.
Well, this is in Belgium.
I don't know the rules in Belgium. What the card used to do was to provide you with the same cover as the residents of that country. So in this country, such a card would get you completely free treatment. In another country, it will get you whatever that country does for its citizens. So if their citizens have to pay £25, then so also would you. If their citizens have to pay half the cost, then so also would you. So it doesn't replicate what you've got here over there. It buys you the right to what their population gets there. All right?
Well, at the time it was €25 for just to see the doctor.
Well, there you go. That must be
and
what
then
was...
after that, all the other costs. But it was done on the insurance anyway.
Well,
about $3.
But I'm just saying that, again, that you pay, the system is that you get what a local would get. And if that's what a local would get, then that's what you get. All right? Good night. I'll do Patrick.
Good evening, Alan. Can you hear me okay, Alan?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it's just about the Jehovah's Witnesses, Alan. I know you brought them up. They don't knock the doors now. I was talking to a couple the other day. What they do now is they're all over Manchester city centre and they stand outside Sainsbury's with like a clipboard with all pamphlets on. Well, I was talking to the gentleman the other day and he was saying we don't talk to people anymore, they approach us. So it's gone there. And I used to, like you said, when I was a kid, my mum used to wipe for me when we was kids. But now they're all over the city centre and they spread it around Manchester, but they just stand with pamphlets and if you want to speak to them, you go over and speak to them. They don't speak to you much anymore. And I used to sell ice cream for Gerald's and at Manchester City's ground every year. They used to have a big meeting and there'd be like 30-odd thousand there. So I used to have a little chat with them. And the other guys you were on about with the American guys, they're called the Mormons. I used to have a chat with them now and again. I just, I like to do a bit of research on what their religions, what they understand and what they're about. I find it quite strange. But yeah, it's still about but we don't go door to door. We just stand outside Sainsbury's now. With a
Right.
big
Well, right. I suppose other supermarkets also. But Patrick, thank you very much indeed. And the Mormons, as we used to call them, were of course the Church of Latter-day Saints, and I think their United Kingdom headquarters is that. I think it's marble, but that beautifully illuminated church, if that's the right word. I hope I'm not giving offence to their faith, but that church near Chorley, you can see it from the M6 as you drive up, and it's all, well, at night, of course, it's all lit up, and you see it, and that's their UK headquarters, if my information serves me correctly. How do Ron?
Hi, Al. How you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Okay, listen, I've listened to you for many, many hours. I can just say I started listening to you in the 1980s when you were at Red Rose Radio, a very cheeky chap in your time. And nowadays, we listen to you on this show, and I must admit, I've got a very good advice that you're maybe retiring shortly.
I won't be retiring. I may be sacked shortly.
Oh, well, yeah, I heard that, but I thought that was bad news. I must admit, in your time when I listened to you in my early days, when I was at a company where I could only get Red Rose Radio, now you're with Lancashire, and if you are sacked, I'm going to say, Alan, I'll be well missing you, because you have a different attitude today than you've ever had when you were with Red Rose. And I listen to you regularly now at time, and you're a good chap. I must say, you're very intelligent, and I enjoy your chit-chat with all your folk, and you will be missed. What you reckon?
I've no idea. And if I'm gone, I won't care, will I?
Well, so, I think you will, Al. Honestly, I think you will, because I'll miss you, and a lot of you.
Well, yeah, you must be what I thought. You may well.
But
listen. When a person who's been doing a job for a long time, particularly in this industry, disappears, the people say, "Oh, how are we going to manage without him? How are we going to manage without him?" And 2 days later, they're listening to somebody else, and quite right too.
Yeah. I understand that totally. I know you're having a big wrangle there at the moment. You've got to apply for your own jobs and everything. How I know it? Well, that's another story. But I'll say...
Well, you might know it from it. You might know it from it being in the papers. it's not a secret.
It is. Yeah, I've not seen that. Honestly, I haven't. But I've been chatting to a good friend of yours within the industry. You will be missed. You will be missed, fella. Your attitude today is totally different. You've got a lot to give to the actual general public. As you well know, you chat and you put up with some shite. But
no, I don't.
On the whole, well, no, you don't. You're right. You don't put up with anything. You get some shite, but you don't put up with it. Sorry, Alan.
It's all bread and butter to me. It's all the same. You know, the most intelligent conversation is as entertaining as some of the less intelligent conversations. It's just a chat. That's all it is.
But you must agree with me.
I don't have to agree with anybody.
No, you don't. But if I said, if you thought deep and hard, you would agree. But listen, if you don't want to see you go, I would like you to carry on, because we do enjoy it. I just listen. I've never rung you in my life. I've listened to you for hours and hours and hours, but you're very entertaining. You do get some mess on, and you might call me a mess, but I'm just giving you a bit of praise of all the times I've listened to you.
Ron, thank you. I hate praise more than I hate complaints, so thank you very much. 0800 218 2255. You can't eat praise. If you want to join us, feel free. Yeah, that is a very mercenary way of looking at it, but it's just a job. I just sit here, talk crap, they give me money, and when they stop giving me money, I'll be sat at home talking crap to myself. I mean, it's just a job, you know? It's just a job. And quite frankly, it's not that hard. You sit in a nice warm room, talking into a microphone, listening to people, telling you stuff, asking you stuff. It's just a job. Let's not get all bound up with it. Oh, it's this and it's that. It's not. It's just a load of gum smacking. Lisa Stansfield, however, is a brilliant singer. Sorry. 0800 222 555. Got a bit carried away there. I don't know. I could sing. If that's all you have to do is say, I don't know. I spend half my life saying it. How do Anthony?
So good morning. Oh, it is good morning now, isn't it, Alan?
Well, it's morning.
Yep, it is. Well, it's not a good morning here in the Wirral. It's rainy and horrible and cold, but never mind. I was at my dad's recently, I think for Sunday dinner or something. No Jehovah Witnesses, thank God. And but he got some of his old photographs out, and he had a programme from about 1957, late 57, 58, from the Liverpool Philharmonic Hall with Buddy Holly in it. He'd gone to see him. He was a big fan. He used to have all the... he used to tell us kids off for, playing all the little 45s on his dance set, or his LPs, which came out. But just two things about it. One is Des O'Connor was in there. I don't think he was to compare. I think it might be wrong about that, actually. But he must have been very young then. And number two, I think Buddy Holly was well ahead of his time. For his age, I would have loved to see or heard what he would have ended up doing. His arrangements, Raining in My Heart, and stuff like that. For a 22-year-old guy to do, and certainly a lot of Beatles stuff is based on his production standards. Don't think he ever went into backward tapes and things, but he certainly was into double tracking and multi-tracks, and I think they've just found a load more of his songs, demos, which they probably are working on and sticking strings on or whatever, as I speak. But it goes to show it was just a funny thing. But it was the Des O'Connor thing which got me. I don't know why. Probably thanks to Morecambe and Warrens.
Maybe. Oh, there you go. Well, Des O'Connor has been around for a very, very long time, hasn't he?
He has. But maybe if he was compare, maybe that was a good idea, because Morecambe and Warrens sent his singing up no end, didn't they? Which was very funny for a lot of people around the country, but I don't think it was so funny for him. But he was a good stick, and
it meant his name was mentioned on the telly in the biggest light entertainment programme of its day, and that kind of publicity is unbuyable.
Priceless.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we only had 3 or 4 channels in the 70s.
Indeed. But the point is that there's an old expression in the entertainment industry which is very nearly true, and that is there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Right then. Well, we're going to see Allan Beswick throws brick through a local police station window in the next week.
Well, not unless somebody called Allan Beswick does that, but I won't be doing, because I'd have to drive about 40 miles to find a local police station. I don't know how many you've got.
No.
Have a good night. How do, Matthew?
Oh, good evening, Alan.
Good evening.
Just a quick question. You know the letter that you got through the door off the Jehovah's Witnesses?
I do, yes.
Did it have a stamp on it, or was it just posted without a stamp?
It had a stamp on it. It had a proper lick'em and stickem stamp.
Was it one of the new ones with a barcode on?
Oh, God, I don't know. I just saw a stamp. I just thought, there's a stamp. So I don't think...
I
think I might have known. I don't think I've ever seen a stamp with a barcode on it yet. So
right,
I don't know.
You're aware then that they've recently changed the stamp.
I am indeed aware. Yeah.
And that at the end of this month, your old stamps without a barcode, the majority of them will be invalid for you.
Well, I thought they'd bumped the date on account of their inability to give the compensation to people who sent their stamps back.
Apparently there is a grace period in there of 6 months, but the date for not using them is the end of this month. Apparently, so that 31st of January date still stands. So,
right.
But they will deliver apparently for 6 months. Anyway, that isn't actually what I was phoning about. It's just the Jehovah's Witnesses. I'll have to make it quick with being near 1 a.m.
serving their sentence for, and so they wouldn't change it retrospectively.
Go on.
Well, I was just saying that. I'd love to talk to you about it longer, John, but unfortunately we're at the end of the programme. But thank you very much anyway, and I'll be back tonight at 10. If you want to ring back and discuss it further, John, you can do so tonight from 10. Till then, have a great Sunday. Ta-da.
BBC News at 1 o'clock. This is Sally Johnson. A Cabinet Office memo obtained by the Sunday Times has prompted renewed questions about links between the BBC's chairman, Richard Sharp, and Boris Johnson. There's been increased scrutiny of Mr Sharp's appointment to the corporation because of a claim that he helped Mr Johnson secure a loan before he was given the role. The BBC chairman insists he simply connected a friend who wanted to guarantee a loan to the then Prime Minister with the head of the civil service, but had no further involvement. Our political correspondent, Ian Watson, has been looking at the leaked document from December 2020.
It says, given the imminent announcement of Richard Sharp as the new BBC chair, it's important that you no longer ask his advice about your personal financial matters. In a letter to BBC staff this week, Mr Sharp stated he was not involved in making a loan to Mr Johnson or arranging a guarantee, and that he'd not arranged any financing. Following the publication of the Cabinet Office memo, I'm told that this remains his position. And a spokesman for Mr Johnson insisted that he'd never received or sought financial advice from Mr Sharp.
The Cabinet Office has refused to comment on the leaked document. Memphis Police have disbanded one of its specialist squads after 5 of its officers were charged with the murder of a black motorist. Tyreen Nichols died 3 days after being beaten by members of the Scorpion unit. Barbara Plett-Usher is in Memphis.
The police chief had been under pressure to disband the unit and she resisted it. She said she didn't want to disband it because of an egregious act like the beating of Mr. Nichols, that it still did important work. But since then, she says she has been speaking with his family members, she's been speaking with community leaders, she's been speaking with officers who are not involved with the unit, and she agreed that because of the heinous act, it was a good idea to disband it. The cloud of dishonor had come upon it, and she said she wanted to take proactive steps for healing, and that all the officers who were in the unit had agreed unreservedly that it should be disbanded.
The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his government's response to an attack by a Palestinian gunman which killed 7 people in East Jerusalem on Friday will be strong, swift and precise. Mr Netanyahu described one of the measures being considered.
I'll submit to the Security Cabinet additional steps in the fight against terrorism. This includes significantly hastening and expediting the licensing of weapons for authorised civilians. As we've seen time and time again, this saves lives.
The Welsh Rugby Union Chief Executive, Steve Phillips, is set to stand down after allegations were raised of misogyny and racism in the governing body, following a BBC investigation. Originally, Mr Phillips had vowed to continue in his role, but it's understood he's now conceded to the growing calls for him to resign. BBC News, it's 3 minutes past 1.